There is something I've noticed about women who almost become unrecognizable to the person they used to be. And I'm not just talking about women who become successful financially. I'm talking about women who change their entire lives. I'm talking about their career changes, the way they carry themselves changes, their standard change, even the way they speak changes. And we look at the finished version of that and we think there must be something fundamentally different about her. Maybe she was just more confident. Maybe she was just born that way. Maybe she's more disciplined. Maybe she was just always that girl. And the more I've paid attention to women who actually reinvented themselves, the more I realized they all seem willing to do one thing that the rest of the people absolutely fucking hate doing. And once I realized that one thing, once I've noticed it, I literally started seeing it everywhere. Because the people who are trying to change their lives are completely loyal to the person who created the current one. And those two things don't work together. I think we have been making reinvention way more romantic than it actually is. Because we imagine the whole glow up montage, the new hair, the new style, the new aesthetic, the new apartment, even maybe the new city. And all of a sudden, your whole life has a soundtrack, which is cute, don't get me wrong. But the uncomfortable part happens way before anyone can see the transformation. And it happens the second you realize the person I've always been cannot take me where I want to go. And that part is fucking uncomfortable because now you realize not only do I have to change what I do, but you're gonna start questioning everything you spent your entire life calling your personality. I'm too shy for this. I'm bad with money. I'm not disciplined enough. I don't know how to run a business. I would like to post online, but I'm too scared of what people might have to say. And I get it, okay? That's normal. But why does I've always been like this automatically mean, therefore, I must stay like this for the rest of my life? This is exactly where a lot of people get trapped because we confuse familiarity with authenticity. And you have to realize just because you've been doing something repeatedly for almost a decade doesn't mean God himself engraved it into your DNA. Sometimes it just means you've been practicing this your entire life. And that's the thing that I see with women who actually built extraordinary lives again and again. They are not overly loyal to the previous versions of themselves. That's it. That's literally the whole secret. They're willing to disappoint people's expectations of who they're supposed to be. They're willing to look inconsistent. They're willing to be called fake. They're willing to be beginners again and again. And they're willing to walk into a room behaving completely different than they did before, regardless of people remembering that. And I think that's why it's easier to admire reinvention from the outside than it is to actually do. Because from the outside, everything looks impressive. But from the inside, girl, it's embarrassing as shit, okay? You tell yourself, I'm gonna become more outspoken, and then the first couple of times that you actually speak up, guess what? You're not gonna feel powerful. It's not gonna be, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm that girl. No, you're gonna be embarrassed. You're gonna feel like, wait, who am I to think that people actually care about my opinion? And that's exactly what reinvention is about. You're gonna feel like you're faking everything. You're gonna feel like you're acting. And you actually are to a certain extent. You're gonna feel like people are just judging you. You start dressing differently. And it feels like everyone is thinking, why are you doing too much? You literally spent your entire life being the nice girl for 20 years. And then you start setting boundaries, and all of a sudden somebody tells you, wait, you have changed. And you know what the most hilarious thing is? They're actually right, because that's the fucking point. I've said this before, I'm probably one of the fakest people you will ever meet. Not because I'm gonna smile in your face and then when you leave talk shit behind your back. No, I'm not talking about that. I could wake up tomorrow, and if I genuinely don't like the version of myself that I am today, guess what? I will change her immediately, without a doubt. Because I'm not staying the same person that I am today just because everyone else got comfortable with her. Because I don't understand this obsession that people have with staying the exact same person just to prove the point that they are authentic. Imagine being 23 and you decide this is it. No more transformation, no more software update, no more glow up. This is the final product. That sounds like hell to me. There are so many women walking around protecting an identity they don't even like, just because they're scared to change, to be called fake. Meanwhile, the women they're jealous of have probably spent an entire period becoming a completely different versions of themselves, where they got called fake, where they got called, are you doing too much? All of that stuff. Because new behavior always feels unfamiliar before it feels normal. And I think the easiest place to see this is actually confidence. I love this idea. The best thing about confidence is nobody knows if it's real or not. That means you could walk into a room and internally you're literally screaming, you're anxious, you don't feel confident. You're like, oh my gosh, why am I even doing this to myself? I feel cringe. Everybody's probably staring at me. And somebody from across the room could look at you and be like, wow, she is so confident. How does she do it? Because they don't have access to your internal monologue. They only see what you show them. That means something interesting happens eventually. You keep acting like this confident version of yourself long enough that you stop consciously performing her. So that means the thing that required so much effort all of a sudden becomes normal. You're gonna be confident naturally. And this is exactly why I don't completely agree with this idea. Just be yourself. Which self? The 16-year-old version of yourself? The version of yourself that didn't have standards? The version of yourself that didn't set boundaries? The version of yourself that was people-pleasing because she wanted to be liked by everyone? Why does that version of yourself get permanent access, ownership to your identity? And I think this is exactly where a lot of people quit, because there is a gap between deciding the type of woman you want to become and actually feeling like her. Because you can clearly see the type of woman you want to become. You know what type of standards she would have, what she would tolerate, what kind of money she would make, how she would dress, what she would stop doing. But you don't really feel like her yet. And that gap is the most uncomfortable part ever, because your old identity feels familiar, even though it makes you miserable. And the thing is, your brain really doesn't give a shit if something is good for you or not. It only cares if it's something that you're used to, if it's something that's familiar. So you say you want to become the woman who actually sets boundaries, and now somebody asks you to do something that you don't want to do, and now we find out. You say you want to be more visible, and it's time to post a video, even though people might judge you, and now we find out. You say you want to become a woman who is successful, and for 6 months, you're doing something and you're not getting the validation that you thought you would get. And now we fucking find out. Because reinvention isn't tested when it's 1 a.m. You're laying in bed and you're imagining all those things that you could become. No, it's tested when your behavior is actually costing you something. If I was reinventing myself starting today, I would ask myself, what goals do I want? I would ask myself, who do I have to become for those goals to make sense for my life? Because those two are different questions. Let's say you want to build a business. Fine. What type of woman is capable of running that business? How does she make decisions? What does she refuse to spend 3 hours overthinking? What kind of skills does she have that currently you don't? And then, this is the part people normally skip. Look at your current identity and what are the contradictions? If future you requires boundaries and current you needs everyone to think she's nice, we have a problem. If future you requires visibility but current you is committed to people are gonna judge me, we have a big problem. And that's actually good, because now you know what you have to build. So if you've been looking at the woman you want to become like she's this completely separate person, I promise you she's not. But you're probably going to have to stop protecting the identity that's keeping her from you. And sometimes the first sign that it's working is somebody telling you you have changed. That is the number one sign that you're actually becoming her. And that's it for today. I hope you guys like this video. If you're interested in reinvention and becoming a completely different woman in confidence and actually creating a life that you're genuinely obsessed with, you are exactly at the right place. Hit the subscribe button and you will see my face every 2 weeks. Bye, girlies.